Hello, everyone. Before I start, I just want to quickly thank Alessandra for inviting me here. I want to do a shout out to Pepijn Willekens, who I think many of you know, without whom Plum Road Tea Dream, the video game, and all of its other formats wouldn't exist. And a shout out to Vaf, who funded the creation of the video game. I'm like first and foremost an illustrator and a dancer, so like I don't always feel very comfortable with words, so I'm going to be a bit nervous during this talk. Bear with me. And for the coming 20 minutes, I just want to dive into the creation process of Plum Road Tea Dream with you. So Plum Road Tea Dream is a multi-format project on the virtual as a sanctuary from a queer and a POC perspective. It takes various shapes, a video game, a performance, and an exhibition, for now. And the core of the project are 7 virtual sanctuaries that I created together with Pepijn and a bunch of game developers. First, I will tell you a little bit more about myself, some background information. I studied illustration and graphic design, then I studied dance. And since graduating, I worked mainly as a theater maker, a mentor. I coach the third-year dance students for their graduation pieces, and as a dancer performer, where I work freelance for other choreographers. The only red thread that I can see in my own work over the past years is that there is always a search for what is the right format in relation to the content of the work. And I will just, to give you an idea, quickly show you some previous projects that I worked on. This one right here is called Diorama. It's a visual, poetic journey of 30 minutes in a small theater-like box for a young audience. It's for 3+, where we basically made a kamishibai, which is like a storytelling mechanism from Japan, but rather than one illustration, we cut it up into multiple layers, so you get a kind of stacked 3D effect, and we tell a story about how one day the sun doesn't rise as a circle, but as a square, and how that influences the whole world. This is Hier praten de bomen met elkaar, which I would roughly translate in English as Here the trees talk to each other. It's a documentary-style performance where we trigger audio fragments live from interviews of people in a small village, while I'm building images, still lifes, to kind of accompany those fragments of storytelling. And so it kind of sketches life in a rural village in Belgium. Then we have Wij twee nos otros dos, which is a dance duet that I made, where I wanted to look at touch between male bodies without sexualizing it for children from 6 years and onwards. And Archipelago, which is an installation where we invite families to join us on a world-building session with objects that usually we would throw away or not really give like a lot of attention to, so trash, basically. And then in the last 4 years, I started working as a game designer and more specifically on Plum Road Tea Dream. First, we'll look into Plum Road Tea Dream, the video game. Of all the many things from Plum Road Tea Dream that I would love to be talking about today, for example, how I think it's really interesting in its representation for queer and POC people, or how it uses the virtual as a space for new rituals of grieving, or how it's a plea to recognize video games as an artistic medium of expression and cultural heritage, something that we don't always manage so well yet in Belgium, in my opinion. But rather than all those things, I want to talk about the collaborative nature of this project. A big ongoing research throughout the creation was how do I as a theater maker without a background in video gaming, collaborate with a group of game developers. And we found multiple techniques for doing that. I think a very simple and straightforward one is I made a lot of sketches. These are some pages out of my sketchbook. After a while, the game designers started to refer to this book as the Bible, and we were like making really sure that it wouldn't get lost anywhere. And what was really nice about the sketches is a lot of them kind of were literally translated into 3D environments or objects, landscapes in the game by the designers. Maybe a good example of that is right here, where I would make a simple sketch. Sometimes I would do a kind of mock-up in Photoshop myself quickly, and then together with the designers, this transformed into an environment in the game. Another approach was making maquettes, so making 3D mock-ups of the actual spaces. You can imagine for a lot of game developers here, that sounds like a lot of useless work, but I cannot 3D model. So for example, this space that I created together with the developers was originally just a scrappy cardboard box with some colored film, but it was enough to kind of convey the idea. Here is another maquette that I made, and whoops, and how it ended up in the video game. I think this brought forth many unconventional game design choices. A very concrete example of that is the inventory in Plum Road Tea Dream. At the end of the prologue in the game, there is this tablet that you can pick up, and it's a physical kind of huge object in the game. It's a square, and it is a square that I once made out of clay and was 3D scanned. And I came across many game developers that thought that this was a very funny idea, that an inventory, like a UI element, is something that you pick up in the game and that it's first 3D and then it transforms into this 2D UI element. And for me, it was very logical because I sculpted this tablet out of clay. So probably the fact that I made it physically and that I could hold it in real life kind of prompted the idea of like, oh, it could be a collectible object in the video game. So this way of creating, where a lot of physical assets were part of the creation process, proved interesting for other reasons as well. Quite early on, we decided to end every residency with what I called a look behind the scenes. Game designers would probably call it playtesting. It was a moment where we opened the doors of the studio where we would be working at, in the cultural house that we would be working at, and people could come and play the unfinished chapters, but also see kind of all of the research, images that were accumulating, first drafts of voiceover texts, the clay sculptures, kind of everything that was part of the creation. And it gave this kind of very associative view of like what the future of the project would be, and they got to see a work in progress, let's say. I also did this in the form of artist talks, let's say, where I would use the audience as test cases. I would try out voiceovers. I would invite people up to come and play the unfinished games live in front of an audience to see how people would react to them. When I wanted to hear my own voiceovers, I asked people from the audience to come and read them to me. So it was a kind of moment where in real life I would try to like gauge, okay, how are people dealing with this material, what's working, what's not working, what piques interest, and so on and so on and so on. I decided to create the video game as I have created my theater pieces over the past years, which means that I would take a bunch of game designers, here you can see the team, and a bunch of artists, and we would go in residency together in a cultural center. So we would work in small blocks of 2, 3 to max 4 weeks, and we would work on the game intensely. And then after that, we would take a long break, usually at least 2 months, at a certain moment, also waiting for funding up to 6 months. But there were a lot of interesting things to that way of creating. All of the physical traces, all of the physical assets were way easier to work with. 3D scanning implementation, me and my inability to communicate as a game developer was mitigated because everyone was physically there, so I could just like sit next to them as they were working and kind of like create a game together with them. And because the game is made up of these different chapters, different sanctuaries, we realized quite early on that each chapter could have its own art style. We would just find an art style that matched best for that specific chapter to evoke the atmosphere or support the narrative that we wanted. And this made it so that even though we were just small team of indie developers, we decided to work with several 3D artists and many freelance, traditional and new media artists. With the money that we received as funding, the more logical choice, or the choice that Pepin proposed at first, was to just work consistently on a weekly basis for like around maybe 2 years with 3 people. And we decided to flip it around by working in these residencies, in these bursts. The core team was usually at least around 8 people, and then other freelance collaborators would come in to make specific assets or just one level or do music for one of the chapters or make only the start screen of the game. And so the team would often be even a lot bigger. And that was okay because we didn't need to pay people a steady fee for a period of 2 years, for example. It resulted in a very eclectic art style for the game. I will quickly show you the different sanctuaries. We have the empty games, which is a series of empty buildings that are 3D scans. We have the New Gods Generator 3000. The Mausoleum, which is by far the most realistic of the spaces. Lullaby, aka my fairy fountain, my ode to the fairy fountain from Zelda, where you can see the textures start to become a little bit more like early PS2 era. The tea and plant care, and then last but not least, where is it? The Sunrise Monument, which is almost a Minecraft reference, very pixelated and like low poly in style. A major upside for me, and what I also heard from the game developers in working in bursts over a long period of time with breaks in between, is we had a lot of time for reflection. We rarely felt any pressure to kind of come up with solutions for problems that we were facing. We could simply kind of like sleep it over, leave it until the next residency, and usually with time, answers came and things actually just resolved themselves quite smoothly. So the work environment was pretty stress-free throughout the creation of the game. A big downside for me was you can't offer like a stable wage to people. People need to be willing to engage on a freelance basis. Just to give you one example, so this is the the whole team. Many people, they don't have a picture here because artists are amazing, but when you email them to send over a picture and a bio, they forget it. So there's many more people than just here. And for example, we had 4 people on music and sound design. The different chapters have different artists that made music for them. And one of the smallest collaborations out of all this team is a collaboration with the Antwerp-based artist Tsubasa Hori, who plays traditional Japanese instruments, mainly drums. And what we did is we went to her studio to do recordings. And the way that we worked is I was playing the video game or showing footage out of the video game, and she was improvising to those images. We would record that, and that got translated into a soundscape for one of the sanctuaries. And this is like the simplest, the smallest of collaborations. So if you kind of like quantify that by the number of collaborators there are, it was a very crazy but also beautifully inspiring process. And the furthest that I took this idea of like how collaborative can this get are the icons that you can collect in the game. Let me see if I could show you one. Oh yeah, here is the sun. And this is what they look like in-game. So there are these, we call them icons or tablets, that you can collect inside of the video game. And they are small clay sculptures that are 3D scans, and then there is a texture pasted on it. And when we were in these residencies, in these cultural houses, I would just invite the cultural workers that would be working at that house, but also just other artists that were passing by, to come and make these sculptures. I would like do an Instagram post, hey, we're in residency here, like pass by, come make a sculpture. We had a whole list. People could just choose one, clay, sculpt one, and then scratch it off the list. And so suddenly, by kind of opening our doors to anyone really, we had around 30 collaborators extra to our project. All of them are credited, and their little artworks are now showcased at a Plum Road Tea Dream exhibition in the Singel in Antwerp. And so the cleaning lady of Corso, who happened to come and make one of the sculptures, is now like on the wall of the Singel as one of the artists in the exhibition, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, this is like the sketch for the exhibition and the final picture, how they are seen how you can see them right now. So Plum Road Tea Dream is more than only a video game. There is also a performance and an exhibition. I'll just like read out the explanation of the performance so you have an idea of what that looks like. And I'm going to bring you right here. Plum Road Tea Dream, the performance, is a multidisciplinary piece centered around an autobiographical video game created by Antwerp-based artist Samuel Baidoo. Combining live performance, video game streaming, and honest conversation, the work explores how we can imagine new spaces for grief, healing, self-discovery, and transformation. Equal parts coming-of-age story, collective gaming session, tea ceremony, and ritual, it invites audiences into an intimate space of reflection and shared experience. The performance follows 2 performers as they navigate the game live on stage. The audience watches both the projected gameplay and the performers themselves, creating a theatrical and cinematic experience in real time. One performer acts as a guide, while the other, an invited guest, enters the game world for the first time. Their encounter is simultaneously spontaneous and performative, shaped through dialogue, discovery, and emotional response. So Plum Road Tea Dream, the performance, was developed partially parallel to the video game, which made that I could kind of like let knowledge of one team seep into the work of the other team. So the performance team would come together and they would brainstorm the narrative of the video game with us, for example. And the game developers would come and watch as we did tryout runs of the performance to kind of give feedback on audience interaction, how the spirit guide was used inside of the video game, and the spirit guide was used inside of the video game, and so on and so on. What I like about the performance is that the audience is on stage with us. They're really close to us. We have a bunch of beanbags and pillows, so you get these relaxed bodies in the theater space, which I really love. And we kind of continued this research of how do analog and virtual, or how do the physical space and the virtual space meet each other for the scenography of the performance. So the floor that you see, the beanbags that the people are lying on, the cubes, they are all covered in prints from textures that are straight out of the video game. So there is this weird thing going on where people see textures or objects in the game, but then they're also on stage and they might be on one of the cubes, like right next to you. By making this performance, we realized how modular Plum Road Tea Dream is. It's kind of like a big puzzle that, when rearranged, can take on different shapes, a video game, a performance, and we also made an exhibition out of it. In the exhibition, where is it? It's here. In the exhibition, we showcase the different chapters of Plum Road Tea Dream as standalone games, and we show them next to all of the physical traces of the creation. So all of the maquettes, all of the clay sculptures, all of the objects, and we reused the scenography of the performance in a different setup to create the exhibition space. I'll give you a little look at that as well. Looks like this. Voila. I'm curious for the future of Plum Road Tea Dream, how far I can take this modular way of thinking. In September, for a first time, we'll do a version where in the performance we play through the whole game. Normally in the performance we play through a section. In September, we'll do the whole game, so it will be like a 3-hour performance where audience is free to enter and leave as they want. And I'm really interested in the kind of hanging out that happens when people game. And I wonder what I can introduce into this, like, in this setting of like gaming and hanging out and listening to other people chat. Things that I'm imagining right now are real-life NPCs, so performers that might come and sit next to you as you're watching this piece and start a kind of weirdly scripted conversation with you and maybe point out certain other things in the space that you might wanna look at. I'm imagining a series of comic books on the different characters that you meet, so that Plum Road Tea Dream becomes a kind of multiverse. I would love to make an arcade cabinet where the audience can play inside of the performance, and so on and so on and so on. So basically, I want to make the theater space into a real-life open-world game, let's say. I really hope to show the performance in Rotterdam one day. You're very welcome to come if that ever happens. Fingers crossed. Meanwhile, I will be here at INDIGO if you want to know more about the content of the game, because I didn't really get to talk about that so far. You can find me here. And I'm open for questions right now. Also, oh, sorry, we'll be releasing it on the 27th of July on Steam. So you can already wishlist and check it out.
Okay, the lady had a question, that's correct? Yeah.
Hi. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. I think it was really inspiring, and I love to see like this mix of media, especially using a video game as part of a theater, performance and an exhibition. And well, my question is coming, I swear. But I really like also how the goal with your project is really to like be a support for community, and I love how it shows in the process as well. So when you talked about the sculpture. So the question I had is, for the performance, is the performer really discovering the game for the first time, or is that more acting?
No, so we have the spirit guide in the performer. This is in the performance. This is someone that I've worked with during the creation of the performance, and they know the game inside out. And then next to the spirit guide, wait, I'll just quickly show it. And then next to the spirit guide is always, oh, my laptop is and then next to the spirit guide, we always have an invited guest. We choose for people that have some kind of affinity with gaming, that are queer and POC themselves, and of whom we think that they would be nice conversational partners. And with them, we do a 1-hour preparation, which is mainly practical. It's mainly to get to know some of the gameplay elements so that they don't get stuck during the piece. But other than that, the whole conversation that they have while gaming is unprepared and unscripted. So it's really a guest. This also means that it's every time someone else, and we try to make it every time someone local. So when we played the piece in Amsterdam, it was someone from the Amsterdam art scene. In Antwerp, it were people from Antwerp, and so on and so on and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the talk. I was wondering at some point when you were talking about the sort of cultural centers that you were in and working collaboratively with multiple people, you were talking about because you don't have a huge amount of technical experience, you were working with people that did have it and kind of sitting in with them and kind of co-creating the game. And to me that seemed like a very interesting creative process. So I was wondering if you could elaborate more on like an example of what that would look like in its execution.
Yeah, wow, so many examples. Let me think. So you're curious when you mean execution, like...
I'm particularly thinking of if you're working with someone and they're on a computer, and you're kind of sitting with them at that computer, like how does that, because...
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so like, I mean, this doesn't happen like a lot, but especially when it comes to like, when we were getting into details or like environmental design and it starts to be more detailed, I would like make a lot of sketches. And then at a certain moment, I would just kind of like sit together because we wanted to like finish a level. And then I would like almost kind of like ask if they would like be okay with being my hands, kind of. So like I would be like, what would happen if we enlarge this texture a little bit? Or can we move that whole sculpture over there? Or like, can we rotate it? And the thing is that I feel like I could have probably learned that myself if I invested like a year of my life or something. But this is a little bit what I always do, like just as I showed the podcast performance in the beginning, I just rather work with someone that does podcasts than learning myself how to like edit audio fragments. So like usually it would just look like that, just kind of like having a conversation, moving over assets, trying out different compositions. But that's like after they've done the biggest part of the work. So that would be just like for details and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.